Hey, this is Jay.
And this is Chelsea.
Welcome to the Shifting Perceptions podcast.
We are bringing you inspiration to live a more creative lifestyle because our favorite people are the ones that choose the path less traveled. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 14. This is Chelsea Alders.
And Jay Alders.
This week we sat down with Jairek Robbins, who is a performance coach, motivational speaker, and also Tony Robbins' son.
Yeah, no big deal. I'm just Tony Robbins' son, huh?
Yeah, I know. Well, it was actually pretty cool to be able to talk to him, although he's pretty tight-lipped about the whole Tony Robbins' son.
Yeah, I was sort of hoping he would open up a little bit, but we didn't want to cross lines and be like, so what's it like growing up with Tony Robbins brushing your teeth when you were a kid?
I know. Well, so he didn't quite let us dig into his whole story, but we got into the principles. He talked about a little bit about his learn it, live it, give it. Is that the way it goes?
That's the order, yeah.
All right, yeah.
We should say, we didn't have him on just because he's Tony Robbins' son. I've actually been following him online since I discovered him on Instagram a year or so ago. And Tony Robbins, going back to that for a second, was someone that has helped me tremendously in my life, as he has many people. So I was really curious, talking to his son, since he kind of took up the family business, how his twist on the family business would be.
Yeah, I feel like I can hear everyone ever related to you giggling right now, because I feel like 13 years ago when I met you, I feel like you were dishing out those audiobooks.
Yeah, I probably sounded like I was his son at that point, right?
Yes, he was very into him, but he did a lot for your life. He transformed you.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that I've listened to a few of his things and watched his documentary. It's very motivational, but let's not get on a Tony Robbins kick.
Yes, let's
since this is
stick
about
to the topic here. We had Jairek on, and he is his own man. He has an amazing book that has tremendous reviews on Amazon. You guys should check it out.
His Instagram's really motivating too.
Give it. His Instagram is epic, actually. Whenever I go on there and I see something that's wow, one of those moments, I know it's usually, I look at who it's from, and it's often from him. So
yeah, he's got some good shareable material in there, and really happy and motivating. It was cool. We got to dig into, he had an amazingly inspirational trip to Uganda when he was a lot younger, and it seemed to have molded his mind into much more of a, how can I serve, and how can I help, and how can we help people sort of shift their thinking as far as how much we give of ourselves.
Yeah.
I liked the conversation on being able to give so much, but also conserve and take care of ourselves. His rituals are inspiring.
Yeah, he also had a near-death experience, which I don't think we touched upon when he was in Africa. He I was reading before our interview that he almost died.
Oh yeah, that's right. We forgot to touch on
which I'm
that.
sure can shift anyone's life quite a bit.
Yeah, so take a look. You can look more into him. He has a Wikipedia website. You can just Google his name, learn all about him. And I know he has something coming out with his dad. I think it's a documentary or something like that.
Does he?
Yeah, we have to look into
Don't
that.
remember
We'll put that in the show notes, since I clearly don't know what
Well, I already
talking
did the show notes, so don't give me more work to do.
Sorry.
But no, this interview has some really good stuff. I mean, Jairek is a young guy. He's in his early or mid-30s, and he's already making quite an impact, doing retreats and public speaking, and he's an accomplished author. And it's, what a better qualified person than someone that grew up the son of I'm not your guru, right?
Yes. Although he is your guru. So.
Yeah. Well, that's the name of the documentary.
I know.
Doing a little twist.
I got it.
A little plot twist here, a little throwback.
Okay. No, but we hope you love this one, guys. I think this one is a little bit different than some of our others, as this is more of a let's get lifted, and I don't know, I guess it's excitement towards your journey in this one. Yeah,
it wasn't as much about his personal life so much as it is motivation and tools to kick yourself into high gear.
Yeah, really good tools. All right.
So cool. There we go. Let's listen in, guys.
Hello, Jairek. How are you doing today?
Very well. And yourself?
We're good.
We're great, man.
So excited to have you. We have a lot of, topics we want to cover, but I think what we really want to start with our audience in particular is we have a tremendous amount of creative people that listen to our podcast. And one of the concepts that really spoke to me just in your TED Talks and some of your other talks you've done
is this whole concept of the learn it, live it, and give it. And I really do think that that's something that, I mean, for me, it was like a click went off. Like I was like, it's so true. Because sometimes when people come to us that they are just not completely understanding or following through with some of these goals, it really is that whole live it aspect of it. And so I want you to talk about that a little bit, and then we'll sort of go off of that.
Cool. So learn it, live it, give it is a really simple, just philosophy we live by. And it's set up in a way is most people that I've observed, when we get really excited about something, we find our guru, we find our teacher, we find our mentor, or just a great book. And you usually know when someone's in this stage because they believe that whoever this human they've crossed paths with knows everything. And
Right.
you sit down with them and you're like, should I eat spaghetti or salmon tonight? And they're like, well, the book says you should always eat X. And you're like, seriously?
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, should I work out or should I get more sleep? And they're like, well, according to the book over here. And you're just like, dude, come on. And it's like, I know they're great and I know they're awesome and I know you're learning from them, but everything works some of the time. Nothing works all the time. The only thing that works all the time, I'd say, is maybe breathing and faith. Like there's certain things that are always applicable, but for the most part, 99.9999% of stuff, it's going to be applicable some of the time. And so it's exciting to find new information. It's thrilling to use it. But then that next stage is really living it. And it's the stage that most people skip. And that's why people come across so abrasive when they're first learning something, because they learned it and they're so fired up about it and they're giving it, they're sharing it with you, they're telling you about it. But you're watching them and something's just not congruent. It's not making sense. It's like there's just something that doesn't match in what I'm hearing right now and what I'm seeing. And it's the concept of, their feet are showing you who they are and their lips aren't matching that in return. And the concept is their actions speak so loud that you can't hear a word coming out of their mouth. And it's like, whoa, that's crazy, because you're watching them and it's not adding up. And all they skipped was the living it part. And what's funny is when you learn something and you really live it, you embody it, you practice it, you use it every day, it becomes part of who you are. You figure out first just how to do it. Second, how to make it fit into your world. And then third, how to automate it and make it just part of your DNA, part of who you are. And at that point, now you could share it with someone because they said, hey, how do I experience that? How do I get that? How do I feel the way you feel right now? I have a friend who's a 12-time world triathlete. And this is what happened. She went to a triathlon. She stood at the finish line and she watched how people felt and how they looked when they finished. And was like, I want to feel that way. How do I do it? And then she went and found a mentor. She found a teacher, a guide, a coach, someone to help her on the journey. And then she lived it. She busted her butt and worked her face off and eventually became a 12-time world triathlete champion.
Wow.
And now she trains others how to do it.
Yeah,
but you could only imagine if she went there, stood at the finish line, watched how people felt, was like, that's amazing, and then opened her own triathlon club and started coaching people.
Which happens so often. And actually, the first thing that comes to mind for me, and I'm not involved in the MLM world, but that's actually what comes to mind to me most, is the people that maybe see the gurus and the success stories and they basically just want to step in and be the success, but they don't actually incorporate any of the principles of maybe, I don't know, like essential oils or makeup. They're not actually using them or changing their whole life to wrap around these products that they want to be these, like, driving the pink Cadillac or whatever it is, but they don't actually incorporate anything that they've learned into their daily life. So it's really, I think, an interesting thing when you see these, like the broken system from beginning to end. And I know Jay has.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, so I'm an artist, a visual artist, and I find that a lot of people get stuck in that middle section you were talking about, living it, because they feel like, okay, I'm going to take some classes or watch some tutorials. Now I know how to paint an eyeball and paint a happy little tree, and now I'm good to go. And they see these other artists that they compare themselves to, like you mentioned, your friend that's a triathlete. It's easy to see people on the other side of that finish line and say, well, you make it look easy. I'm just going to learn how to run, or I'm going to learn how to paint. And you don't realize all of the freaking hard work, which is one of the things you talk about in your book, is like falling in love with the hard work. And most people get stuck in that middle section because they're like, dude, it like takes a lot of freaking hard work to make it look easy. And I would love for you to like speak upon that, because that's such an important topic.
Yeah, of course. I had an experience recently. We were at an art gallery in Aspen, and I walked in and I looked around and I saw some sculptures and I was like, wow, these are cool. Like, they're really neat. It didn't seem like something I couldn't do. I was like, I could probably figure that out. And it's this concept of like, it doesn't look that hard. And I was talking, it was a friend, it's a gallery. So my friend knew the guy who owned it. And I was like, oh, like, how much are these? Like, I just kind of whispered, and it was just us in there. He was putting it together for the show that was going on later that week. And he was like, oh, this one's selling for like 80,000. And I was like, I'm going to write that
3 of them.
Yeah.
No, I just wrote it down. I'm like, I'm going to write that on my list of goals to achieve in the next few years. And he's like, what? And I was like, make art that sells for 80,000. And he looked at me, and I'm about to piss off every artist who's listening to this, so I apologize in advance. But he looked at me, and he's like, are you an artist? And I was like, for $80,000, I can figure it out. Which violates every rule of the art. But there's something that's very interesting about this concept. And it's the value that you're choosing to lead with. I have a friend of mine who was a stockbroker, a hedge fund guy. Someone said, you'd be pretty good in a movie. His other friend said, that guy? There's no way he could be in a movie. He looked at him. He said, I bet you $50,000 I can be a headliner in a movie. He said, I don't think so. He shook hands. The guy moved to Hollywood. If you ever watched the Fast and the Furious movie, he was the bad guy.
No
shit.
way.
In the first movie.
Ah.
The guy who drove the Honda 2000.
Is a dare, huh?
That was it.
So have you had such dares in your life, or people like, were you like sitting around a bar or hanging out with friends and you're like, yeah, I can go be a supermodel or whatever? Like, have there been like some weird dares that you've followed through with?
So probably when I was younger, there was a really cute girl in high school, and I was like, wow, she's awesome. And the guy next to me was like, we could never date a girl like that. And I was like, watch me. And I went and became friends with that group. I went and met her. I was aggressive and straightforward, and we were dating so many months later. I don't know if that counts.
Totally.
I think girls are as scary as like being an actor in a movie or selling sculptures for 80,000.
Yeah, but let me rewind this for a second. I think there's different types of people going in it for different reasons, and that means they're activated by different things. Because when my friend was chasing that part in the movie, he wasn't scared if he was going to get rejected by the people sitting behind the casting desk. He didn't care.
Yeah.
And he didn't care if he had to go to 50 or 1. He was reverse engineering it. He was talking to the people from the top down and saying, hey, if I want to be in this movie, what do I have to do? Let me know. And I don't want to just be in the movie. I want a leading part. Like, how do we do this? And they're like, well, you need a background. He's like, no, cut the crap. Like, what do I really need to do? Let's go. And he talked through it, and he figured out his own formula. And then he crushed it. And he did have to take a couple classes. He did have to improve at what he was doing. But eventually, he nailed it because he had a different approach than everyone else was taking. And I was like, that's so interesting. And it's part of what caused my brain to say, hey, wait a minute. There's 2 ways to move art, and it depends on the side of art you're in. It depends on the side of your art, whether that's singing, dancing, speaking, talking, communicating, loving, whatever your art is, whatever your passion is, what you bring into the world. There's really 2 sides of it. There's the side of us that wants to express the deepest and most beautiful aspects of the art. And then there's a side of us, if you think of it, like switch hats. Take that off, that hat off, set it down, pick up a different hat and say, okay, if I was coming at it from a whole different way, how would I do it? And all of a sudden, for most of us, the challenges that we're facing, for a lot of artists, it's figuring out how to create enough money to cover the time that they can just spend focusing on their art. And they say that money doesn't matter. I've never met someone with a bunch of money that doesn't care about money.
Right.
and so, there's little layers in there where you got to say, wait a minute, it does matter, because if I have enough, not a lot, just enough, then it frees up my time so I can focus on my art. My art happens to be helping people. That's just what I love to do. And I had someone sit down to me and be like, well, why do you love helping people? I'm like, I don't know, because it feels good. It's fun. It's exciting. I love it. It just feels like the right thing to do in my DNA. It feels called to do it. It's just part of me. It's kind of the way an artist expresses why they paint, why they draw, why they sing. It's just part of their DNA. And so for me, I crafted a business around helping people in coaching and speaking and training and products and all this jazz, which frees up my time. And on my free time, you can ask my wife. I'll sit in the living room and stretch. And while I'm stretching, I'll be on Instagram just answering random people, just helping them. Be like, hey, read this book, or hey, go take this course, or hey, check this out. Here, let me DM this to you. Let me email this to you. Let me send this to you. Just here. And they're like, what can I do for you? I'm like, nothing. Just take it and do it and help someone else. Learn it, live it, give it.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I think that's also, so I guess that leads to our next question. Like, if you are sort of living that, and that sometimes, so I'm a birth doula, so my work is physically and mentally like giving myself to people to get them through the hardest day of their life. That's a lot of what I do. And my question for you is, sometimes does that start to, like, what do you do in your time for you that is balancing that out? Because we can't give all of ourselves, right? So what does the other side look like for you?
Ooh, so these are rituals that help me stay full. And it's combing through and saying, okay, what are the rituals that I need in my life that keep me absolutely overflooding, not even just full, but like overflowing with whatever awesome sauce I need to be my best self. And there's so many ways to think about this. I always say, if there's a soda can and you take the soda can, you open it up, pour 80% of it out, hand it to a small child, like that child can crush it, dent it, squash it, mash it, like it's done. But you take the same soda can, you fill it all the way to the brim, you pressure seal it, hand it back to the same little child, and they can barely do anything with it. Like it's so much pressure pushing out that they can't crush it with their own strength. Now a bodybuilder can, but not a child. and so this concept of most people, we crack open the lid in the morning, we pour out all of our goodness all day long, we get home with 25% left in the tank. We distract ourselves for a few hours because we're exhausted. We go to bed, wake up tomorrow with 25% of day-old soda just sitting around all night. And then we attempt to go into the world and give our best without realizing that we're 75% empty from yesterday, and now it's day-old, warm, gross soda. And we're trying to give that to the world around us. Yeah, but that's what most of us do. That's what most people do every day, to be honest. You just watch them in the morning. Like, watch most people roll into work. Watch most people roll into the gym. Watch most people, take their kid to school. If you watch most of them, you're like, ugh, that's like 2-day-old soda, or like month-old soda going on in there. And that's okay. I'm not mad at them. I realize it's hard as hell to raise a kid. You're exhausted 90% of the time. There's a million things pulling at you. This isn't about shaming someone. It's about saying, hey, wait a minute. What's the minimum investment you need to get the maximum ROI to be the best version of yourself? What's that equation for you? What is it? Is it a 3-minute ice cold shower? Now, people hate that one because it doesn't sound very nice. But if you only get 3 minutes in the shower, instead of turning it up to hot, turn it down to ice cold, you'll come out like a superhuman version of yourself for the next 4 hours.
You might not look that impressive, though, to your wife.
Oh, you will. You will. And here's why, though. The science behind it is, well, it depends on what aspects she's checking out. But
right? Yeah.
The science behind it causes your body to go into fight or flight. So your muscles actually tighten, your adrenaline fires. It looks like you become a superhuman version of yourself that could run through a brick wall with ease. Like you become the Hulk version of yourself. Adrenaline fires, eyes focus, body breaks down fuel better. It's amazing.
I was going to say it also like improves mitochondrial function from what I've learned.
There you go. Also can stir up some brown fat, which is getting rid of the wiggly jigglies and burning that off so it tightens up and you look better. But all kinds of aspects here. Get your hormones in the right rhythm first thing in the morning. But most importantly, it brings you to the best version of you in just a couple minutes.
Do you do things like EFT or NLP or meditation or yoga? What are some other things that juice you and keep you on your A game?
Cool. So this is where you got to think of it as a giant grab bag of awesomeness. And you got to be like, what are all the things that are in there that could help? Meditation, yoga, lifting weights, writing a love note to someone, surprising someone with a random act of kindness, doing some deep, powerful breathing, techniques to really focus and calm your mind. Calm breathing is 4x4x4. So it's 4 seconds in through your nose, hold it for 4 seconds, breathe out slowly for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, and repeat. That's calm. Focused is 4 seconds in through your nose, 2-second hold, 4 seconds out through your mouth, 2-second hold, 4 seconds in through your nose. That repetitive. So it's 4x4x4 or 4x2x4.
We actually use that 4x4x4 in labor. Fun
yeah.
fact.
Calms the body.
Yeah,
It's
man.
amazing. I picked that up from the Navy SEALs because they, people think of Navy SEALs as guys who come running in with guns blazing like a bunch of cowboys, like, like they're the calmest, most stoic dudes I've ever hung out with.
Right.
I love that by the way, you get extra points for comparing labor to Navy SEAls. So
it's the same thing. So I'll give you another one. Watch this. What kind of fuel do people need to be putting into their body? This is another way that you can stay at your best, how you fuel yourself. And you got to think of this. There's a couple analogies here. One, if we went and spent $15 million to buy an F1 race car, and we took that thing to the track and we entered ourselves into the Monaco Grand Prix, and we're going to race this thing. Could you imagine how unbelievably, idiotically stupid it would be to instruct the driver to never bring it in for a pit stop the whole race?
Yeah, of course.
That'd be the stupidest thing in the world. You're like, I own the car. Don't ever bring it in for a pit stop. I want you to jam on the gas, go as far and long as you can, let the tires burn off, shred this car, run out of fuel, and kapow, call it a day. You're never going to win a race.
Yeah.
But that's how most people go through their life when it comes to food and nutrition. They redline their body as far and fast and hard as it can go until literally their tires are on fire, their fuel tank's on empty, and it's screaming, feed me! And then they don't put in the high performance fuel that actually keeps the car going. They stuff it full of like sand water and think the engine's going to somehow perform at the same level. And it's like, now here's the other thing. When you think of an athlete, so Serena Williams, Tom Brady, I don't know who your athlete is, pick them. If you think of an athlete, they eat very specifically for maximum endurance. Now, let's go back to my friend who runs triathletes, ultra marathons, Ironman competitions, ultra endurance. There's a very certain set of fuels they use to stay mentally, physically, and emotionally at their peak throughout this long endurance race. My thought is, shouldn't moms be eating the same thing every day?
Hell yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Because when do they have to be up? Someone told me, why watch a spooky movie? Your 2-year-old's going to wake you up silently in the dark, standing by your bed and staring at you every night anyways. It's like, okay, creepy, funny though. And you don't need the movie. Just wake up and go.
Yeah, every night. There's 3 of them. Yeah.
So we are actually both vegans. We're raising our kids vegan, and I eat the same exact health shake with like every macronutrient and vitamin possible, because you really can't achieve any level of success if your body is not getting that right fuel, like you said. So I completely agree.
Yeah, we actually got healthier after a year of not sleeping with the twins, because we realized we literally couldn't make it through on the little sleep we were getting on eating crappy food. We had to. There was no choice.
Right. That's right. And so there's 2 parts of it. One, you got to think moms and dads are up first thing in the morning, oftentimes, a lot of times at night. You wake up and then you got to have maximum endurance and energy all day to deliver in work, deliver at the office, deliver for the kids, take care of everybody, take care of yourself, take care of the world, do all these million amazing superhuman things. And then you got to have tons of energy all night long to welcome them back home and take care of them and do everything, and then go to sleep, do it again. You need high performance fuel for your mind and body. Now here's the second part. It's why I brought up the pit stop. You need the right fuel at the right time. Because if you try to take a pit stop 5 minutes too late, you're out of fuel. Yeah. Your tires fell off. And so the secondary aspect of that is saying, okay, we have the right fuel. Now what's the right time? How far can my mind body go until I need to take my pit stop? And what specific fuel do I need to put back in my body to give myself the next sprint that I can go on, through the day? And then I need to hit the pit stop again. Now, not only what fuel, physical fuel, food, but mental, emotional, spiritual fuel do you need to fill back up with in that moment as well? And if you think of that concept as, you get out on the track, you go, come back, refuel. What is it that refuels you? So going back to our grab bag, meditation, yoga, singing, dancing, movement, stretching, random acts of kindness, laughter. We're doing, watching something that makes you laugh out loud for 10 minutes. Fun part is the brain doesn't know the difference between real laughter and fake laughter. And fake laughter oftentimes leads to real laughter.
Yeah.
Which is silly and fun. But you get all the same endorphins, all the same brain chemicals with fake laughter for 10 minutes. Doing the breathing techniques, sitting outside, grounding, putting your feet in the sand or in the grass, or, going and doing a snow angel in your bikini.
Okay.
That'll get you back in the zone.
Just got a picture of you in my head doing that.
Yes,
that
in your bikini. Well, so with that said, with all these options for rituals, you have a stage presence and you do the stage thing a lot. I love hearing from public speakers, like, what do you do backstage? What's your, I've got 3 minutes to get myself ready. What do you do?
So I'll normally take a 3-minute ice cold shower before I head down. Before that ice cold shower, I'll normally hit the gym and work out for 20, 30 minutes to get my adrenaline firing. Then so gym, ice cold shower. I'll normally, just think of everyone who's there. And we try to do a lot of research of every room before we ever walk in there. We don't do, giant public forum seminars where we talk about the same 10 things every time kind of stuff. We customize everything we do to the people we're going to speak with. So we try to research and learn as much as we can about who's there. And then we really, truly, so I'll spend those last few minutes just thinking about who's in the room and thinking about what I know that can really help them. And then when it's go time, I'll do my best to weave in everything I know about them into that speech to make sure that I'm really speaking to their heart and really helping them with what they're actually going through.
Yeah. So, Jairek, you had mentioned early in the conversation about there is no book that has all the answers. There's no guru that has everything. You've basically grown up around the mindset, some of the mindsets that you're teaching, actually, and you've been fortunate enough to have met people that have a lot of answers. I was wondering, through your life and where you are now and all the moments that have led up to this moment, what kinds of things are the ones that still have you puzzled? What are some of the things that you think that you know that you don't know yet, that you're consciously working on?
Oh, so many things. I'm a very curious person. If you leave me in the room with anybody or anything, I'll start asking just random questions and why is it that way and how come and what led up to it and where did that come from? I still watch planes fly and with a smile on my face and think, isn't that incredible? I understand the math of how that works. At the same time, I'm still mentally my brain explodes every time I see a plane fly by. I'm just like, wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to stuff I don't know, there's so much. Why people make certain decisions, why people feel certain ways, how things work in the world, why people are hungry still, why is there trash in the ocean, why are there fish dying, why are people trying to genetically create mutated fish? There's so many things I'm curious about that I have no clue why things are happening. The one thing I have learned over time is I tend to create my own personal PhDs on subjects. Mm-hmm. So I'll take 5 or 7 years and say, okay, what am I going to study in depth for this 5 or 7 years? And then I'll make it a goal. Oops, there's a bug. I lovingly released his spirit to
the world. Returning the energy back to the universe.
That's right. That little bug is going to reincarnate as something awesome. I feel it. And so, a little too close to the face.
Oh, man.
Time to reincarnate, pal.
Peace out, bug.
There you go. And so the concept of I've learned to sit down and say, okay, if I had 5 or 7 years to go to university and study something, what would I want to study right now? And then what are all the books I can get on it? What are all the courses I can take on it? Who are the mentors I can learn from in this topic who genuinely live it and have lived it for a very long time? Ray Dalio, who's a hedge fund guy, built a $17 billion personal net worth. It runs a $165 billion hedge fund from scratch. He started in an apartment just outside of New York. And this guy says, if you're going to pick an expert or a mentor, find someone who's done it successfully at least 3 to 5 times. I was like, well, that just makes sense.
Yeah.
Don't find the person who's working on it. Find the person who's done it 3 or 5 times, and they'll know what to do. Like, they've done it more than one. And you can't find the person who's done it once. It might have been a fluke. And they're still great for information. It's still useful to hear. But you want the person who's done it 3 to 5 times. Reversing back to network marketing, I have a friend who, she's probably worth interviewing on your podcast for artists. She's a beautiful human. And just a 2-second snippet of her story, she was competing in a triathlete or an Ironman. The day before she fell, cracked her hip. She went to a doctor, had him flash freeze it so she could compete the next day with a flash frozen crashed hip.
Whoa.
She came in 8th overall in the entire race, including men and women. She came home, felt exhausted for the next so many weeks, and eventually she's like, I gotta go to the doctor. Something's up. And she thought it was just the hip. And they diagnosed her on that day with multiple sclerosis.
Jeez,
told her
dude.
body's going to break down and fall apart. She came home back in the day when instant AOL Messenger was a thing. She opened her AIM and found out her husband was cheating on her through the chat he had with some other woman. She ended up getting a divorce. She had a 50-something thousand square foot gym with a bunch of trainers she owned at that point. She landed up getting rid of it, going into retail, just working a 9 to 5 to pay the bills kind of stuff. And that's where she was. Then some lady came in, introduced her to network marketing. Long story short, she built an organization, made a personal $1 million in net income for herself from building it once. The company disappeared. She went to another company, built another $1 million organization. Company went, got shut down for some reason by the government. Went to another company, built another $1 million team. That one didn't work out, and she landed up in her, I think, 4th or 5th company, and now has a multi-million-dollar net income every year based on the team she's built for the 4th or 5th time.
Oh my gosh.
Like, she would be a good mentor.
That's an expert right there.
Yeah.
Even if you're not in her company.
Yeah.
She's a great person to learn from. She's done it again and again. And
Oh my gosh.
again.
Are you allowed to share her name on here? Or you can give it to us for the show notes, maybe.
I'll give it to you for the show notes.
You got it.
Her name's Susan. She's a wonderful friend of mine. But again, you don't even have to be in her company.
Yeah.
Just pay attention to how she does it because it's working. And
Yeah,
she's
she found a
repeated the
formula.
success again and again and again.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, so you have to tell us, what's the thing that you're working on your PhD in life on right now?
So I wrapped up and I'm doing a little extra learning in the area of relationships.
Okay.
I spent 5 years studying relationships before I met my wife, and I've continued to study it ever since because I don't think it's something I'm a master and I've solved it. That's an area I'm constantly curious about because it's an always evolving category of life.
Chicks are confusing, man.
And friends and family and yeah.
Yeah, humans.
Yeah.
Humans are confusing, true.
But it's one of my favorite subjects in the world. I mean, it's honestly one of the things that I get hired all the time to help people in business and personal health and performance. And at least by the 4th session, we're helping in relationships.
Yeah. It always comes back to that, I feel like.
What are some maybe more frivolous PhDs you're working on? Like, are you trying to learn a blazing solo on a guitar, or are you trying to learn acro yoga? Give me something juicy that's not self-help related.
Okay, so I went through 5 years, probably 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm at 9 years of relationships right now, which is almost a PhD. It's right in there.
Yeah.
And then I've been 1, 2, 3. I think I'm 3 or 4 years into the PhD on business. And not as juicy as any of those other things, but I'm wildly passionate about it. I just read business books all the time, and it's the business of business, not the how do I make $1 million book, not the how do I become an instant overnight Instagram success book.
Yeah.
It's
the science.
No, it's like the technical aspects of business. How do you hire the right people? How do you create the right culture? How do you, organize your balance sheet? How do you, and I take online courses for this. I was working on there's a free program you can take online, I found, where it's free and you can take all these classes and do your MBA online and it's free. That's amazing. Why not? And I started doing that on the side for fun. It was really interesting, and I just lucked out. My wife also loves business. I met her. She was working on her MBA, And so we've studied business together for the past 4 or 5 years now, and we're loving it.
I think a lot of people don't give business as a topic enough credit as far as being creative. Like, even though I'm an artist, when I was about 15, I saw an infomercial on a Carlton Sheets real estate investment program that I bought. And I've read every Robert Kiyosaki book, and I've read most top 100 business books, because I find so much creativity in business, and then I find so many applicable lessons to apply business towards creating artwork. Can you speak about some of the creative aspects? Because some people that listen might be like, well, that's great for you, I'm just not into business. They don't see that other side of it, you know?
So the beauty of it is it's just like anything else. Like, if you're going to study art, let's say painting, there's certain brush strokes, there's certain ways to capture the light in a painting. There's certain ways and different styles of painting, different approaches to painting, different aspects of it. And what's interesting is the same thing in business. Business is nothing more than an expression of that, which most important to you. And people say, oh, how is that true? And it is true. If you get inside of it, I look for the aspects of business that really make my heart go pitter patter. Mm-hmm. And again, it's people. So if you look at what I do, I focus on helping individuals be the happiest, healthiest, strongest, and most fulfilled version of themselves. I look at business growth, because I figured out if you can take someone who's struggling or doing pretty good in their business and you can help them do amazing in their business, then again, it frees up the time and space that they can then go focus on all the things they really love. And business is a science. There's certain things you do, it just works. But then the final piece, when I was really studying business, I was asking the question, like, what's the purpose of business? What's the real purpose of business? And number one, just like art, is to add more value to the community around you than anyone else is adding in your own unique way. And I was like, well, that's pretty cool. And that's an artist's expression. Like, what's the value that you get to choose, what value you add, and how do you add more of that into the community around you than anyone else is adding? Now, number two, the other part of business is making enough money to take care of your loved ones, to put food on the table, to take care of your family, and then providing, a space where other people can earn a living and take care of their family and their community. I was like, well, that's pretty cool. Giving people the ability to earn. We're not too far off a time in this country where grown men would wait for 8-9 hours in a line all day just to have the opportunity to put in a couple hours of good work to bring home a piece of bread at night for their kids. Like, we're not that far in history away from that moment. But we forget that. We complain about work when back in the day, like, you'd wait 8 hours just for the opportunity to put in 2 hours of work. It's amazing. But choose the expression of what kind of value you want to add. Go to work, have the ability to earn and take care of the ones you love. And then the final piece, when I really thought about it, it's to create an environment in the workspace that allows human beings to become the happiest, healthiest, strongest, and most fulfilled versions of themselves. The type of environment, if you're a business owner, and as an artist, you can be a business owner. You can own a gallery that, shows your art. And if you think of it that way, or you can own a music studio that you produce music in. You could be the singer and the owner of the studio. But most people leave out this last part, which is creating an environment that if someone came and worked with you or for you, that if they did that for 5, 10, 15, 20 years of their life, they would look back and say, wow, I am a better human because I've worked here. I'm happier as a human. I'm stronger as a human. I'm healthier as a human. I'm literally like the 3.0 version of myself or 10.0 version of myself because I chose to work here instead of any other place over these last 20 years of my life.
Yeah,
and that really sparked something special in my soul. Because that spoke to me.
That's pretty cool, because it's like, for anyone that is listening that, does own a business, seeing it from that perspective and taking ourselves out of our own heads of like, what's it look like for me every day? Like, I want to hire the best person for the job, but instead taking it from that outside angle, it's almost paralleling back to your like seeing the end result of the triathlon. Like, I want to see those people at the finish line with me, so proud of what they did, and like that flipped perspective.
Exactly. I mean, imagine you owned an art gallery and the people that are there selling your art or showing your art, imagine they stay there for 20 years with you, and 20 years later they look back with tears in their eyes and just say, you know what? I'm so grateful I chose this opportunity all these years.
Yeah.
Like, because of you, because of your art, because of this place, I've been able to have such a good life as a human. Thank you.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
what a gift you can give that human. But that's usually not how we treat them and not how we think about it.
Mm-hmm.
No, not usually. Well, and so launching off of sort of our perspective of things with business and art and all of this, I know that you traveling has been a really big part of the beginning of your career, and then it's always been a focus for you. That is one of the bigger parts of our podcast that we really try to. I mean, I feel like one of the top 3 things that people tell us that are stuck is that they just wish they could travel more. That's like so important to them. But I want to hear more. I feel like in all my travels, I tend to see that people living in other countries, in other cultures, one, they travel more. They really do. They've seen more of the world than anyone in the US has. But 2, their perspective on work and happiness is really different. So I would love to hear some of your feedback on that.
So when people tell me they wish they could travel more, I always just laugh. Because more often than not, if you added up their alcohol bill, you'd probably have more than enough money to travel.
Right? Or like cable bill every month. Or
just add it up. Yeah. Add up their secret pleasure. I don't know if it's alcohol, food, Starbucks, if it's their clothes. Like, there's something they're spending money on that you were like, oh, that was a plane ticket around the world.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that was, I mean, use travel pirates. There's so many cheap ways to travel. My wife and I took a flight from New York to Milan. We took a train to Prague and Czech Republic. We then caught another, I think it was Czech and then Prague, or either way. Then we caught another flight from there to Amsterdam for 24 hours, and then from Amsterdam all the way to Bangkok, and it was $186 each.
No.
Whoa, come on, really?
Whoa.
Yeah, we hunt for ridiculous, stupid travel deals, and when they pop up, we're like, can't say no to that one.
Yeah.
And then we go. And you know, if you $200, like, you could come up with $200 and then go have the time of your life. And then people are like, well, how do I get home? I'm like, figure it out. I don't know. Freaking like do a stowaway on a ship and get dropped off in Miami and then prove that you're an American citizen. I have no clue how you're gonna get home, but have fun, make it an adventure.
Yeah.
And some of my favorite people in the world are just travelers. They're people who say, you know what? I'm gonna drop the story of I can't do this. And I'm just going to go for it. And I'm going to explore. And I'm going to see what else is out there. And one of my favorite things that happen, like you mentioned, is you just start to see a different perspective in the world. You just see people living differently and go, wow, I didn't know it was ever like that anywhere. And then it doesn't have to be poor and struggling. Like, we pulled up to the prime minister or president of India. This dude's got a mansion with like 400 bedrooms and he changes bedrooms every night. We were like, dude, I didn't know people live that way. Dude's a boss. Like, yeah, it's crazy. You know, you pull up to some places around the world, you're like, dang, homie.
Yeah, that sounds
I didn't
like
know
so
you
much
could
work
do that.
to me. That sounds like more work for me than walking the 2 miles to get my water in the morning. I don't know.
I have a hard enough time dusting a 2-bedroom apartment.
Yeah,
like,
right.
What the hell you do with 400 rooms? I'd forget which one I left my freaking shoes in. Like, anyone see the shoes?
Yeah.
No? Okay.
Seriously.
See you tomorrow. I'll go find them. Like, that's crazy. And you know, it's the concept of you just see things differently. And when you see things differently, you start to become a different version of yourself because you expand and you open. I think the thing that happened for me when I took a lap around the world, anyone listening who's in college or that stage of life, please look up an organization called Semester at Sea. Apply for it. Even if you have to do the student working whatever thing on the ship, that's fine. Or if you're older, you know, go back and check out. They have lifelong learners who go on board as adults. And take the trip around the world and mentor the students on board and help them, you know, feel at home when they get homesick and stuff like that. But look it up. It's beautiful. It's 3 months. You take a lap around the world, and you visit 10 countries in 100 days. And you know, you do studies and learning on board. And then when you get to the countries, you go in and do, you know, in-country practicum and learning. But you just explore. And it was at a stage of my life where I was studying psychology in university, cross-cultural psychology, interpersonal psychology. And then we would get to a port and I'd walk around and go, wow, people really are like that here. Like, it was my favorite thing in the world for curiosity, because we studied about collectivist cultures of how people do things like each other. Then we got to China. I was like, wow, they're really like that here. This is amazing.
Yeah.
And then, I was taking a class on human sexuality, and it talked about how different things are done and different mating rituals and pickup rituals in different countries. And then we got to Africa. I'm like, people really do those things.
Yeah, that's so crazy.
But it's one of those things that'll change your life, just because you'll never look at life the same way.
I spent my sophomore year in college doing the same. I have family in Amsterdam, so I spent, south of Amsterdam in Holland, and I spent time there and then traveled from there. And when I came home, I was different. I mean, my parents were like, they trusted me more. They're like, you had to grow up quick, and you learned so much more about some really cool parts of the country, or the world, I guess.
Jairek, I have a question about getting stuck in your 3 phases: learn it, live it, and give it. So I think some people probably don't live it because they lose motivation, or because they maybe compare themselves to others. There's other people perhaps with like more logistical, practical issues, like they're working 3 jobs, they like barely are making enough money to make ends meet. Are there solutions or small little steps that you found are good starting points for people that are like legit stressed for money, for time? They've cut out Netflix, they've cut out all the frivolous nonsense, and they still only have a couple minutes extra. What starting point might they have?
Yeah, that's where I started. I worked for 2 years at a corporate job that paid for our corporate apartment and corporate car and corporate cell phone, all that jazz. And then I was done with it, and I moved back to San Diego. I landed at 11 o'clock at night. I had texted like 6 friends and said, hey, anyone have a room for rent? One friend texted me back, and I hit her back up at 11 o'clock when my plane landed. I was like, yo, room still for rent? And she was like, yep. It's in Hillcrest. It's a house. I have 3 other roommates, but there's 1 room open. And I was like, oh, can I come see it? She's like, well, when do you want to come by? I was like, how about now? Showed up at 11:30 at night on a Thursday. I got a rental car, drove up the hill, and I knocked on the door. She opened it in her pajamas, was like, nice to see you. We haven't seen each other in like 3 years. And she's like, yeah, this is the house. Everyone's sleeping, but that room will be open this weekend. It's a grad student about to move out. She's like, nothing's open right now except for the front den. And so, long story short, I was like, I'll take it. She's like, when do you want to move in? I'm like, I'll go get my bags. Dragged my bags out of the car, threw them in the room, in the front den with a curtain as a door. I remember there was a mattress that someone else was moving out with, leaned up against the fireplace. I was like, is anyone using that? She's like, no. Dragged it across the house, threw it on the ground, emptied my suitcases on top of the mattress, climbed under them, and in the morning, one of the roommates was walking out, and I heard click, 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 the door open, and then I heard click, click, and this is what I heard being whispered behind the curtain. Who's the homeless guy in the den? Because I was literally sleeping under a pile of all my clothes.
The guy on the couch.
Gosh.
It wasn't even a couch. It was a mattress on the ground in the den with a pile of clothes on it and me underneath the pile.
Oh my God.
And so when I moved in there, here's what happened. I had 3 jobs. I worked in inside sales, so making outbound phone calls to sell products. I worked at the warehouse stuffing boxes full of materials and products and all that jazz. And then I worked on the phone as a coach, which I had done for the previous, I think, 4.5 or 5 years. So I got that job back, and then I got 2 other jobs. So I had 3 jobs, working nonstop every day. And I was just trying to pay my $500 a month rent and my car bill. And I was waking up at 5 in the morning, going for my run in the park, getting ready, zooming to work, stuffing boxes all day. As soon as I was done stuffing boxes, I'd be on the phones trying to make sales to make extra money. As soon as I was off the phone with sales, I was on the phone coaching somebody, trying to help them, organize their time management, which I was actually good at, or their health and fitness. Those are the only 2 things I coached on at that stage of life, because everything else I had not figured out yet. And so I was helping people in those 2 areas. And I, at one point was like, you know what? I'm going to start my own little business. So I did the whole hustle thing on the side, which you don't have a lot of side when you have 3 jobs. So I literally started a website at night when I'd come home after all day of working. I started a little website. You can go to the waybackmachine.com, type in my name. You'll see the website. It was ugly as tar, but I put it up there. And I started using Twitter all day. So on every break I took, every time I was in between something, I would just be tweeting positive quotes. Not a lot's changed. If you go to my Instagram page now, you'll see all the positiveness just pumping through.
Yeah,
and it's
great.
Because I like reading that shit.
Yeah.
I don't do it because I know y'all want to read it too, but I want to read it. I read and write messages to myself all day to keep myself at my best. And then it happens to work for a lot of other people too. And y'all love it, which is great. And I'm very appreciative you tune in and share that stuff. And I love that it helps. But in the beginning, it was all for me. It was me reading a good quote, posting a good quote, reading a good quote, posting a good quote. On a bad day, I would go to my page and read all that shit and be like, wow, I really needed that.
Yeah.
There's a little secret sauce there. I was storing a huge library of good thoughts that I could always go back to when I was at my lowest moments, and it would bring me back to life. And I figured if it brought me back to life, it probably helped someone else. And that was my little secret sauce of how I was storing it. What I didn't realize was it was helping a lot of other people too, and it drove traffic over to my little website, which caused people to look me up and say, oh, wow, this is really useful. Can you help me with X? And I only help people, again, with two things back in the day: time management and personal health. That was it. Only two things I would talk to people about, because I had really mastered both in my life at that stage. And so I remember I got a call from a law office in London. It was one of the, soon-to-be partners who needed help with time management. We helped him map out his goals, organize his time management skills, optimize the tar out of it. He actually, just a year ago, came back and became a client again, because he said everything we worked on all those years ago, he had accomplished. He had the $1 million salary. He lived in the special part of town. He was married, had like everything he wrote down was literally his reality now. And he wanted to upgrade again. So he came back to reset the goals with me in coaching.
Wow.
It was fun. It was a great testimonial.
Yeah, that's amazing. And yeah, cool to see from those very early days of your career to see it filter all the way through to now. That's really awesome.
Yeah, it's like art. You got to give it enough time for it to actualize.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, it's true. So I know we're coming to an end. I do have one more question, just as far as I know you're doing the coaching and the public speaking, but what is your big picture? What's next for you?
So many things. We got up to a point that I've always just been a one-on-one coach. I'm not one of those guys on Instagram who's like, I became a millionaire being a coach. I'm like, no, I don't even know how to run the numbers for that. Like, that's silly. But I've helped a lot of people really deeply in their lives and businesses. And what I found was I was constantly overflowing. So we created a coach training program called Performance Coach University. And we started training other coaches that we are now, in the soon, I think January of next year, we're going to start ramping them up with clients. And we're going to start a coaching business, not just my coaching practice. And we're going to expand that so that way there's more people helping more people every day using all the tools and stuff that I've learned and used for the last 16 years or 15 years in coaching. And so we're going to build that up. My wife and I want to create a trust at some point in the future that we can connect it to the interest earned by the money will go to charities and just have a never-ending source of cash for those charities to continually be taken care of and do good in the world. But the real mission of what we do every day to simplify it is we try to put out messages that reach the people that need it most at the moment they need it with the message they need. The interesting part is we don't know who they are, where they are, what they need, but we do our best every day to push out good thoughts via every platform we possibly can. YouTube, Instagram, podcasts, everything, stuff like this.
Yeah.
And our hope is that it'll find them. And we're blessed that every single day we get messages from people all over the world that just say, hey, I really needed that. Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know that our listeners will appreciate that too. I think this is the time of year for it. And I feel like this time of year is when people are struggling the most, and to get a little boost during the holidays is always helpful. So I have one last question. We ask every one of our guests, if I had to drop you back in your childhood kitchen, what's the first memory that comes to mind?
I'm trying to remember what my childhood kitchen was. It was an apartment with my mom, and it was me doing the laundry, like bringing it back down the hallway into the apartment, and her baking Costco lasagna.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Nice.
I don't know why. If I tried to go earlier than that, it was my grandma making me toast with avocado on it at her house.
Whoa, so ahead of the times with your avocado toast. I love that.
Yeah, grandma was hooking it up way back in the day.
Trendy. She's a hipster.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was a
Jairek.
wonderful interview. Yes.
Yeah, we learned a lot, and I know everyone listening is going to really get a lot out of this. Where can people find you?
Oh, I'd say Google me.
Okay.
Most people are going to screw up the spelling of my name, so JairekRobbins. Give it your best shot. Google, slap my mug on the page if you found the right guy.
And we'll include it in the show notes as well.
There you go. So Instagram is probably where I'm most active right now, but Instagram, YouTube, website. Check out Performance Coach University if you're interested in coaching. Yeah, anywhere.
Awesome. Thank you, Jairek. You rock, bro.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Hey guys, we hope you loved that episode as much as we loved doing it for you. So if you go to shiftingperceptionspodcast.com, we have all the links and resources and cool stuff we talked about. You can go over there, find the episode, and get all of that stuff. On social media, please follow us, leave us comments. You can find us at Shifting Perceptions Podcast. And what else? Leave us a review if you could on iTunes. It helps us a bunch. A nice review and a rating goes a long way to thank us for what we're doing if you're into it. And please, if you haven't done so already, click subscribe in your podcast app so you don't miss any future episodes. And in real life, I am an artist, and if you'd like to see my art, you can go to jalders.com or find me on social media at jalders on all the different social media platforms. Chelsea, my wife, is a birth doula, and you can see her on ommamasdoulas.com or on Instagram at ommamasdoulas or at Chelsea Alders. We really appreciate you guys listening. Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.